People are strange. When you're a stranger, or when they're performing shirtless saxophone solos on the boardwalk to a group of bloodthirsty teenage vampires. Welcome to Santa Clara, the murder capital of the world. Two young boys and their mother are leaving the desert of Phoenix, Arizona, to the coast of California for some peace of mind. But they will find anything but some peace of mind. Something lurks within the shadows, preying on victims at night, and leaving a trail of blood in their wake. The only thing to solve these murders are the three young boys and their fascination with horror comics. This is It Records. Welcome, all you creatures of the night. Thank you for tuning in to the It Records podcast. I'm Matt Johnson, one of your co-hosts, and our other co-hosts are here as well, hanging out, having some fun, ready to talk horror movies with us. Peter and Lindsay. Peter and Lindsay are here, guys.
Oh, thank you for acknowledging our existence.
I said the other co-hosts are here. That's you guys. I do usually give a gracious, compliments to one or the other, but not this time.
No, you're getting cocky with your opening monologues. You think you're the star, and then you're like, oh, here are these other people that don't do as much as me.
Oh, you guys are here too? I just forget. I have blinders on.
I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, I'm working on it. I'll try my best, but I am a vain person. Anyway, back to the podcast here.
You probably think this podcast is about you.
I probably think this podcast is about me.
Not even about you.
Yeah.
That's not what I said, but we were close.
Before we tell you what movie we talked about this week, Pete, I'm going to throw it over to you. Do you have a creepy headline for us this week? I just wanted to...
No. I didn't get one from you because you didn't do my homework for me.
That's fair.
Actually, I was gonna say you did for classes that we had together, but we actually didn't have any classes together. Now I'm realizing that.
No, we didn't. We just did the indie together and hung out.
Yeah,
that's about it. Yeah.
We
I probably copied off Lindsay. We've had 4 or 5 classes together. Yeah, a lot of copying back and forth.
Yeah, it works
mutual agreement, hopefully.
I think it works well.
This week on the podcast, if you couldn't pick up from the opening crawl, was the 1987 vampire flick The Lost Boys, directed by Joel Schumacher.
Michael and Sam have just moved to Santa Carla, California. They're about to discover its secret.
Notice anything unusual about Santa Carla yet?
No. It's a pretty cool place. If you're a Martian.
Or a vampire.
Brother Sammy, help me!
Stay back! Stay back!
What's happening to me, Star? Get yourself a good sharp steak. Drive it right to his heart.
You're a vampire, Michael. My own brother, a damn blood-sucking vampire.
Oh, you wait till Mom finds out, buddy.
When a vampire buys it, it's never a pretty sight.
Michael, they're coming! Oh, shit!
No bat nipples in this movie.
No bat nipples, thankfully. That's the first thing
Depending if that's your cup of tea. I don't know. You could be into that.
I mean, some people had to have liked that. I mean, they had to... It's Batman, so they must have enjoyed it. Are you familiar...
He had his own credit card.
Oh, yeah. That one's Batman and Robin, correct? Bat nipples and the American Express card. It's American Express, right?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I think it's Batman. Yeah, because Batman Forever, I think, is the one with Val Kilmer. Wait, no.
Batman Forever is Val Kilmer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh. Lindsay, are you familiar with these movies?
Not at all.
Batman. Okay. Well, Joel Schumacher, who directed this film for us, did the 19. Oh, I don't even remember what year it was. It was the Batman Forever.
It was 90s.
It's the 90s, yeah. With
yeah.
Jim Carrey was the Riddler, and there's Two-Face was Tommy Lee Jones, and he also did the one with George Clooney. Joel Schumacher did both of those.
That makes a lot more sense now.
Right? I saw the influences when I watched The Lost Boys. I was like, oh, I get that whole scene in Batman and Robin with all the fire barrels with fire in them and the motorcycle races. I get his influence. I think most people, I gave a synopsis kind of in the beginning, but if you don't even know what The Lost Boys is and you're listening to this podcast, it essentially is two brothers. They go to a town in California known as Santa Clara with their mother to go live with their grandfather, and Santa Clara is the murder capital of the world. And soon enough, they find themselves with a gang of vampires real quick. There's a bunch of murders going on in the town, and looks like some lost children. I got that from all the milk cartons and from the bulletin boards, but they run into vampires, and that's our movie.
And one of them is Kiefer Sutherland.
That is true. David, one of the main vampires. Is this one of his first films?
I think.
I thought David was not the head vampire.
Yeah, but we think he's the head vampire.
That was the brother. That was the big brother.
Correct. Yes, he wasn't the head vampire, but we're led to believe that throughout most of the film.
I think, as far as Keith
gotcha.
I think he was like right hot off Stand By Me when he started, when he accepted this role. Which, I mean, he's not quite as sinister in Stand By Me, but the characters are very similar in terms of personality and, you know, abrasiveness and like being like, you know, the villain. So I think it's pretty clear he carries that kind of role very well, as we see in that movie and in The Lost Boys. So yeah, I think he was just starting out, though, I want to say.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about Stand By Me. I forgot he's in that. Is he a brother in that one to one of the characters?
No, he's the bully.
He's the bully.
He's the bully that has the knife.
Okay, yeah. Man. Okay, that makes sense.
He pretty much threatened to kill one of them. Actually, he did. He literally threatened to kill one of the kids.
Yeah, I feel like that movie's a lot more adult than like I feel like it's advertised as, or when people look at that movie.
Yeah,
sometimes a very adult film with just kids in it.
That is like my all-time favorite movie, I will say.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
It is really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a really good movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also from that movie, in this film, is Corey Feldman.
Yes, how could we forget? I love the fact that this is like the first of, I think, about 7 movies that the two Coreys from the 80s do together, and it's one of their best ones, I think. But we can talk more about that later.
I don't know, License to Drive is pretty good.
License to Drive is so close to my heart. There were a few moments in this movie that I thought of License to Drive, but we got some car, you know, action scenes here. But
yeah, that's crazy to think this was the first one of the two Coreys, I guess is what they were referred to as.
We also have Bill from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and the Vampire Gang.
That's right. Marco is Marco.
Oh, okay. I didn't know his name. I just called him Bill.
Yeah, I think people will recognize Bill better than Marco, but yeah.
Yeah.
That was Vampire.
The guy with the great hair. You mean?
With the best hair.
Well,
that beautiful mullet.
Well, they all had beautiful hair. Everybody in this movie had beautiful 80s hair.
I think his blonde, luscious mullet with this crazy outfit.
It stood out, you know, more than some of the others.
Is something to strive for in life.
Yeah, they all really had. Maybe it was the 80s. I didn't grow up in the 80s, but it seemed like this whole Santa Clara town dressed kind of extravagantly. It seemed like they were all outsiders in this town. It was to normal society.
Everyone was in the punk scene or some shit.
Yeah. Everybody was like into the punk and like Billy Idol, like Kiefer Sutherland's character definitely looked like Billy Idol. Like,
Yeah.
That's a very fair comparison.
There was like no preppy no of those classic preppy people of the 80s in this movie. At least not that I remember.
No, I don't think so. And I was kind of maybe looking for that as like the first vampire victims. But
You would think.
yeah, but it wasn't, and there was like a rival. I felt like it was gonna be like a rival vampire gang that they were killing off. Do you guys know that those people I'm talking about? Like, they seemed like they were also in a similar dress as our vampire Lost Boys, and they got in the fight at the merry-go-round at the beginning.
Oh, okay.
Like that kind of never grew into anything, but I thought that was gonna be like a rival vampire gang.
That'd be
That's
cool. I would be into seeing something about that.
Mhm.
All the terrible sequels that came out of these movies.
Yeah, so I heard.
Have not seen them. The sequels, I believe, there's two. I don't know if they're official sequels, but there's two that went straight to DVD. Were produced by
Yeah.
Corey Feldman.
Which tells you pretty much everything you need to know if it's direct, to video and Corey Feldman. So
Mm.
He's a good guy, great actor, not a producer.
yeah,
Yeah. And it came out, I think, 20 years or so, roughly 20 years after the original Lost Boys. So it was like, it was pushing the 2000s, if not like 2006 or 7 by the time the second Lost Boys came out.
With like Windows 3D Movie Maker graphics.
Yeah. It was much gorier. And Kiefer Sutherland's brother played
oh,
a
that's
vampire.
right.
Like his actual brother?
Yeah, Angus Sutherland, I believe it was. He was one of the vampires.
What?
I'm not joking, yeah.
So, I feel like, I know I'm jumping around a lot, but I'm trying to keep it on. But it seems like everything in this movie, like, really leads up to, like, a great finale. And, like, everything else is, like, not really any plot. It's just, like, crazy things that are 80s. And they're like, oh, that's so cool. Like, that movie's a lot of that. Like, don't get me wrong, I like this movie, I think it's great, but just like, no plot, 80s, music. Here's some cool things to look at, and here's a cool finale.
Okay, I see where you're going.
Yeah, I agree with that, where the third act, like, the real big climax where it's the vampires versus non-vampires, very, very action-packed. But before that, yeah, it does seem like the plot it's not really fully developed, except that we need to make one of the brothers interact with the vampires, become a vampire, and somehow get to this finale.
Right. So
But-
we got. Go on. Sorry.
Oh no, that was essentially it. Yeah.
So, yeah. So that leads to the older brother. There's two brothers: Sam, Corey Haim, and then Michael, Jason Patrick. He falls in with the wrong crowd, because it all starts with like him seeing Jamie Gertz, or her character's name is Star, from afar, and that's kind of what like lures him into this wrong crowd. And apparently, but we don't know this at the time, but vampires seem to be a rampant problem in this town, and that leads Sam to leads Sam to finding the Frog Brothers. In
Yeah.
the comic store, their names are Edgar and Alan. They seem to have all the vampire knowledge in this town, so they bond over their affinity for comic books, which, leads to greater things. But yeah, I would agree with the statement that, this all, like, it's kind of a slower build to, like, this great, like, fantastic finale, which I think they delivered very well on. I think it lives up to all of that build up, but yeah.
I think before I make this point, you mentioned that Jason Patrick, is that the actor's name, correct? Who is
Yeah.
Michael? All right. He gets lured by Star because he sees her in the crowd. Could you explain where he's at that he sees her? Because that scene blew my mind. It was one of the best scenes of the movie.
Okay. Am I remembering this wrong? Are they at the boardwalk, or like a concert is happening, or?
That's correct. And what artist would you say is playing during said concert?
Oh my god.
It's a shirtless man with a saxophone, which is just rocking out at this boardwalk, and everybody is loving it. Like, everybody's drinking, everybody's dancing, and it's just one guy up there with his saxophone with suspenders on, correct? In a ponytail. It was very 80s for me, and I loved it. I loved that scene so much.
If there isn't a saxophone solo, then it just might as well not be an 80s movie.
That's true, that's fair.
That is so true.
I wonder how that even like became a thing. They're like, you know what 80s music needs? More saxophone solos.
We get more sax in here? Yeah, we need some sax on this track.
Get that, I'm even forgetting the most famous one of those guys.
From what, this movie?
The famous saxophone player.
You're probably thinking of Rob Lowe and St. Elmo's Fire.
Mm-hmm. Also directed by Joel Schumacher.
Also directed by Joel Schumacher.
No, I'm not. I don't know what I'm thinking of.
Are you thinking of former President Bill Clinton? He was known
Not
for
him. I
saxophoning.
remembered his name. He
That's
was.
a strong contender.
Are you thinking of Bruce Springsteen's saxophonist? Are you thinking of Kenny G, the famous clarinetist?
Was
he
that's what I'm
clarinetist?
thinking of.
He could be the saxophone. I thought he played a clarinet.
I'm gonna look that up. I'm gonna look up.
Oh,
what
I think
he
he
did.
is saxophone. I'm picturing Fred Armisen making fun of him on SNL.
He's a
Okay.
saxophonist.
Kenny
It is
G.
confirmed.
Yeah, with the
I
curls.
just looked it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got some great curls.
Well, since we're speaking about music, what did you guys think? This soundtrack, I feel like, is fairly iconic from this movie.
I like that one of the first opening songs with People Are Strange. I thought it was very fitting for what's going on. That's probably what stood out the most to me. I don't really remember anything else, but
Yeah, that's.
I like that.
I love that too because I'm a big Doors fan, and that's an original Doors song, but it was covered for this movie. Someone covered it.
Okay.
Yeah, you hippie.
I'll say it on record. Yeah, I love the Doors and Jim Morrison. Good music. No, there was some trivia about that where, we see the vampire's cave. There's the Jim Morrison poster in there as well. He's hanging up in their cave, Jim Morrison, and Michael looks like Jim Morrison. He's got those leather jackets on. He puts those shades on. He's got the same hairdo, and I was really trying to pick up on the symbolism of why there was so much Jim Morrison in this movie. So many hints to Jim Morrison.
I think that was all intentional.
Maybe they wanted him to be in this movie.
Well, the only connection I can make, he died at like 27.
I know. Yeah, I know. It's
Right.
impossible, but
So,
maybe he like Joel Schumacher's like, man, I wish he was still
yeah,
alive.
he'd be perfect for this movie. We'll get Jason Patrick to look like him.
We'll
Yeah.
get him instead.
It could have been, all I'm thinking is he died young and was immortalized really in that 27-year-old self, is the idea of the Lost Boys. All these teenagers are roughly like, I feel like maybe teenagers or early 20s we're supposed to take and are stuck in that age forever, kind of like the Lost Boys and Peter Pan. Hint, hint, it's kind of a metaphor from the Lost Boys from that movie or book. So maybe that was the connection, is all I could really draw. On the soundtrack as a whole, I unironically listened to Cry Little Sister like 3 times today. So
Thank you
Isn't
for being
this-
honest.
Isn't this Joel Schumacher's first movie too? Sorry to sidetrack here.
he did, I believe, St. Elmo's Fire is before this. Like,
Yeah, it was a couple of years before, I think.
It is one of his first movies, though.
Yeah,
'Cause
he
he-
was like relatively new to the scene, I want to say.
He was mainly known before this as like a music video director, is what he did, which I read a lot of the musicians who did tracks for the soundtrack, and there's fairly famous people on there, especially at the time, he agreed to make music videos for them after the movie. So if they made a song for the movie, he would then direct the music video for them. And he did.
That's a pretty sweet deal.
Yeah.
He did 3 movies before The Lost Boys. The Incredible Shrinking Woman.
Okay.
DC Cab.
Great film.
And St. Elmo's Fire.
Yeah. Rob Lowe in St. Elmo's Fire is a poster in this movie.
Yes. Notice that.
Yeah.
Have you seen DC Cab?
No, I was just razzing. I actually never heard of it.
Yeah. Well, you want to know who's in it?
Sure.
That's great. Mr. T.
Mr. T.
He's on the cover, and he's not even like the top billed guy. They got Adam Baldwin, not the best Baldwin, but they got one of them.
Which is, of course, Steven.
They got Gary Busey's in this movie, so they got a cast. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting.
Anyways, off topic again.
Oh no, that's fine. This movie's just so dense with, like, it's been out for 30 years, and trying to pinpoint every little piece of this movie and make sure we talk about the main points. Oh.
I think it's like it might be one of my favorite like vampire movie.
Uh-huh.
I remember talking about this like very early on with when we did Fright Night. Fright Night's another good one. Our very first episode, we talked about I think we talked about other vampire movies. I'm pretty sure. And Lost Boys was like one of my earliest ones I watched because it was like I watched it when Twilight was out, and I obviously didn't like Twilight as I was into actual horror movies. But if you like it, that's fine. I don't really care anymore. I'm an adult. I could grow past that, but I just like thought this movie was actually cool because it had gore and like I don't know, and cool music.
Yeah.
And it was like angsty. All the right formula for someone who's 18.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, when I was kind of doing my research on the movie, there was, I think he was a critic, I don't remember his name, but he kind of just wrote about, the influence that this movie had and kind of, the shift in how vampires were seen in the media, and I mean, this was like toward the late 80s, so, you start seeing them get more prevalent with Buffy the Vampire Slayer coming out around the next decade, and there was Interview with a Vampire as well. And I mean, now, these days we've got the Twilight, and we've got the Vampire Diaries and stuff like that. But, yeah, so I think it was around this time that vampires kind of, like, it was cool, and, like, people wanted to start seeing more of that.
I think this even brings up, like, another old conversation we had back to the Friday Night episode, where how, like, vampires were really stale at that time, and, like, Friday Night was a later 80s movie, right?
I believe, and I'll check real quick. No, Friday Night was 85, and Lost Boys was 87. I love Friday Night.
So it was before. It was even before this one. Okay.
Yeah, less than 2 years.
I actually, it's really funny that you say those, because those were the years I had in my head, and I had them flipped for the movies.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I thought Lost Boys was 83. I thought that was first, and I thought Friday Night was 87, and it was afterwards. That's really weird.
Yeah, and along those same lines, I mean, they came out kind of similar time frames. I mean, less than a year apart. What's the word I'm looking for here? I think Lost Boys did it better, but Fright Night started this trend, is the idea of the vampire, they look like a normal person most of the time, and then when they're going to feed or something, they look like a monster. Like, their face totally contorts. And Fright Night does that quite a bit, almost exaggeratingly so, with the makeup. And Lost Boys does that as well, where you only really see like their teeth and like their pupils change when they're feeding, and otherwise they look like a normal person all the time. Which these two movies, and actually Josh Whedon, who did Buffy the Vampire, credits this movie Lost Boys as the reason he chose to make the vampires appear the way they did in the show. The way that they look like normal teenagers most of the time, and then he makes them look like crazy monsters.
Yeah, it is very like Lost Boys. I could definitely see that.
For sure.
Who did you say is your favorite character in the movie? You just like, I feel like is the main character David, like the main brother?
That's Michael. Wait,
Michael. That's, I don't know why I said David.
You don't remember his name's Michael? It said
David is Kiefer.
It said 118 times in the film.
It's true. They do say it a lot.
There's 98 minutes to this
my
film
point is,
and 118 Michaels. More than one Michael a minute.
That's true. What I'm saying is that he's very forgettable, no matter how many times you say his name. Like I find his character like just really like lame. I don't know. He's just like, I'm gonna sleep all day and party all night. The Frog Brothers?
Is that yours?
The Froggy Boy.
Edgar
Probably.
and Alan. I can't get over that. But it makes sense. It's a nice nod to the, Edgar Allan Poe wrote a lot of horror, so that was obviously intentional.
Yeah.
Probably say Edgar is my favorite. I love Corey Feldman. I think Corey Feldman takes himself way too seriously in this movie, but I enjoy watching that, so it's gotta be him for me.
Yeah, well, he was told that he was supposed to watch a bunch of Chuck Norris and Sylvester Stallone movies. You guys read that? And
yeah, to like try to be like them.
And that's the character he was supposed to play. Yeah, okay, but I didn't really see it fitting in this movie. That's why he's wearing the bandana like Rambo.
It all makes sense now.
That's crazy.
I agree with Lindsay though that I think Corey Feldman was great as he's Edgar, right? Edgar Frog. Okay.
Yeah.
I think he like totally dwarfs the other Frog brother in his performance. But my favorite character is David Kiefer Sutherland.
Yeah, he is like straight up terrifying. Like when he's in full form, he is in full form, right? He's not one of the. I guess that's something important to say is that when they, for Michael in this instance, and Star has this situation as well. They're all half vampire until they make their first kill. So that being said, I believe David is fully fledged. Correct. Anyway, David is straight up terrifying in those moments where you see him in full form, and I think he nails it. He has the least to say in the movie out of anybody, but he stands out the most.
Yeah.
In the best way possible.
He's brooding. He's
brooding.
brooding. That's why.
He is brooding and a very commanding presence. I think like even when he doesn't say anything, when they're down in their little lair or whatever it is, and Michael's there for the first time, it's just the way he like eyes Michael and like just says simple lines where it just seems terrifying, even though it's just like, here, would you like some rice? It just seems like he's lying to him. I don't know why, and I think he's meant to, and he portrays that very well. And spoilers, who didn't get a little sad when David was antlered, staked by the antlers? Come on. Cry Little Sister comes on.
I mean...
Thou shalt not cry.
I mean, it wasn't sad.
Definitely wasn't sad. I mean, Kiefer Sutherland definitely knows he's like the best actor in the movie. And I think that's what it is. He's like, I'm gonna be on this movie I'm gonna be on a TV show on this one big network one day. I'm gonna kick fucking ass. But right now, I'm gonna kick fucking ass as this vampire.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Dave. Dave. First name basis is Dave.
Yeah, you're really upset about this loss of character when he was a bad guy. He was trying to kill kids.
Was he killing kids? Well, he was killing people. That's no lie. He was killing people. But he was just a lost boy.
He seems like a man at this point. I don't know.
He's been around a while.
Yeah, he's been around the block.
Well, about an interesting point about that, I don't know if you guys read into like Joel Schumacher's sequel that he wanted to do called Lost Girls.
No.
The Lost Girls. Yes.
I would have watched it.
He had it where his ending was not where the grandpa comes in and hits Max, the actual head vampire, and he dies. His ending was we never see David explode like the rest of the vampires when they die. Like they implode or catch on fire or something. Well, that's what they all do, or like explode with these weird green guts. He doesn't.
Yeah, it's weird.
And it's because they said Schumacher had the ending where it missed his heart, so he wasn't actually staked. And they at the end of the movie was them back down in the lair and kind of plotting the revenge to, avenge their father's death, Max. And the next one's gonna be Lost Girls with a bunch of girl vampires with David.
Yes. Okay. But that never happened, correct?
Yeah.
No.
Oh,
Okay.
Definitely.
only
would've
Corey
watched
Feldman's
that movie.
versions came out. Yeah.
Joel Schumacher's not doing anything right now, right? Let's just let him do it.
I don't think he is. I don't know. I don't keep up with.
He's really not. He's really not doing anything.
And the last news I heard from him was he apologized for making Batman Forever. That's the last I heard from Joel Schumacher.
I mean...
Well, that's the end of that, then.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I made that movie.
I mean, I as an 8-year-old, loved it.
Me too. I had the Sega game.
Can't believe you did.
I played the shit out of that game.
He hasn't done anything since 2013.
That's not 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's
So,
over, guys. It's over.
He's got time.
Yeah.
He's got some time.
He did Phone Booth? Did not know that.
Yeah.
I like that movie.
Didn't he also do the remake of House of Wax, like,
That was
back in 2005?
that was not him.
It wasn't? Then who am I thinking of?
Paris Hilton, who's in it.
Chad Michael Murray? Is that?
Dang, I'm way off. Yeah, I'm thinking of all of them.
Who did?
Well, that's a shame. He should have done that.
I have no idea. Is that dude? He's Spanish. Okay. I cannot pronounce his name.
Yeah.
Just look him up. He directed House of Wax that came out in 2005. I'm not even going to try and say his name because I don't want to offend him just in case he's listening. You never know.
Yeah, you never know. He could be listening. He's a horror fan.
He did The Shallows, which is that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I wanted to see that.
I've seen it.
Should I see it?
It's pretty good. Yeah, I would recommend it if you got it on Netflix or something. That's the Blake Lively one, right? With the shark. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Uh,
So,
guys, can we talk about Max?
yes. I had to think who Max was for a second. I thought of the dog from The Grinch.
So,
Max Headroom? Yeah, let's talk about him. Way before my time. Don't even know why I knew his name. I just remember...
yes, Max is as forgettable as Michael.
All these characters, I guess, are forgettable.
It's kind of true. It's just like I feel like it's a really entertaining movie that like nothing else really matters.
It's one of those movies where you don't know like 90% of the characters' names until you're more than halfway through the movie.
Definitely, especially with the vampires.
It's the way it should be.
Yeah, or like even after you've finished it, I guess. It seems to be the case for us here. But so the mom meets somebody nice. You know, they're in their first couple of nights in town. She meets a guy named Max who runs. What kind of store does he run again?
I got like.
Is it a bookstore?
I thought it was like a movie store, like audiovisual equipment. I saw a bunch of TVs.
Okay.
I don't know. Anyway.
I don't know. I just remember him. He's a real nerd, so I just thought a bookstore.
Yeah. I think I was thinking along those lines. But, you know, and then, you know, he starts trying to come over for dinner and whatnot, and Sam is kind of, you know, resistant. But it's not for the reasons that, you know, you might think. You know, he's not trying to, you know, take over his dad, like, his father's role or anything. But Sam actually thinks that Max is a vampire. Mm-hmm. That's the whole problem here.
Yeah.
And, yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, they think Sam, which is the younger brother, Corey Haim, and he thinks he's a vampire, or he even thinks he's the head vampire. And so they invite him over for dinner to test him, the Frog Brothers and Corey, to see if he's the vampire. And they tried a bunch of tests and it didn't work.
He
which
passes
were
all of them.
Garlic, holy water, and the reflection, right? A mirror.
Yeah.
Which we know from later in the film, those actually do affect vampires in this movie. Garlic and holy water, but they didn't affect him. But spoilers, he is a head vampire. Guess we did say that. But is it because they said he was invited into the house?
Yeah, that kind of helped bring their guard down as far as Max was concerned, and kind of gave him access.
I kind of saw it
familiarity.
as like him being like Dracula, where he's like more powerful. It takes more, like Van Helsing, that terrible movie with Hugh Jackman, where like, you know, he got staked, and then like Dracula in that movie's like, it's gonna take a lot more than that. I kind of saw it as that situation where like you gotta try a lot harder to kill the head vampire, because he's the head honcho. He's the big dog.
Yeah.
He's top dollar.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, guys, I was bummed out. Like, it's been a few years since I've seen this movie, so I forgot, like, about that, and I was, like, thinking he was a good guy the whole time, because I'm naive. But, yeah, it was, like, sad. I wanted the mom to have something, you know? And then it just turns out that he was the head vampire, actually.
Yeah.
She just couldn't have anything.
She was so nice, too. She was very patient with, like, everything going on. Like, one of her sons was turned into half a vampire, like, and she was just, like, you know.
I like how he, like, wears, like, shades, and he's, like, fine in the daytime. Like he's hungover.
Yeah.
Well, he's half vamp. He doesn't get burnt yet by the sun, like David does. He gets.
That's true. I just got like he's just been partying all day. He's like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Always looks so hungover and tired. That was one of the things I was going to say when you were talking about Lucy, which is the mother in this movie, and Max. They have the love interest, and they don't work out because he's a head vampire. He becomes a head vampire. Is the reason why. But they almost could have, because Max offers it to her. He goes, "These are my boys, and I want you to be part of this family." So he's gonna like make her a vampire. He extends that, but she doesn't want it. I was doing some reading, and like one of the themes they said that resonated with people in this movie is the idea of like the family during this time. Like the idea of the nuclear family was meant to be, they saw it as shattering during the 80s and divorce and everything, and that was like bad.
Yeah. And
this movie kind of like embraces that culture, where the mother is divorced from Michael's and Sam's father, and they're seen as the good people, and the bad people are actually this family of the Lost Boys and Max, who like you could come with us, the mother and the father, and we'll all work together. But they're seen as like the evil people, and the family that actually is
the evil stepfather.
Yeah, it kind of flips it on its head and kind of just embraces that, you know, it's fine that you don't have to marry a vampire to bring this family together. Oh, and tidbit: Lucy's name is from the book Dracula. It's the main character's wife's name. I always forget his name. It's like Setter, John Setter.
That's cool.
Oh, don't hate me, Dracula fans. I think that's the main character, and his wife, his name is Lucy, who Dracula hypnotizes for her.
If it makes you feel better, I remember Keanu Reeves' character's name being John in the 1990 Dracula movie.
Wait, really? Okay, maybe I'm right.
Yeah, I swear to God.
Okay, good. Woo! Good.
Who does not do a great job of mimicking a British accent.
Oh, I can only imagine.
Have you not seen it?
That's the Francis Ford Coppola one? With
Yes, it is.
Gary Oldman? Isn't it Gary Oldman who plays Dracula? Or is he Dracula? No, that is... Oh, boy.
No, he's Dracula in... Oh, fuck. I'm combining vampire
Dracula
movies
2000?
now.
Isn't that a movie
No,
too?
not that is a movie, but that's not... That's neither of those movies.
Damn it.
There's like a Nosferatu remake
Yeah.
that William Dafoe plays Nosferatu, and then there's Dracula that's Francis Ford Coppola, and I think it's another famous actor that plays Dracula. And I'm gonna look it up if my backspace works. There it goes. It is Gary. It's Gary Oldman. So I was thinking of William Dafoe. That's who I was thinking of.
For Nosferatu?
For Nosferatu, yeah. And in Dracula 2000, I don't know what the hell that is, but I know it's not that. Dracula 2000. Let's see what the hell that is. It came out in 2000, so that's good marketing right there. And there's no one. Gerard Butler's in it.
Oh, wow.
And Christopher Plummer.
What? Is he Dracula?
That'd be a good casting if he was. No, fucking Gerard Butler is.
Oh, wow. That's disappointing.
Christopher Plummer is Van Helsing.
Okay. Well, why would you make Van Helsing older than I guess it doesn't matter, but there's the immortality thing.
He's an aging Van Helsing.
Oh, okay. He's like the cop at the end of his line, get ready to retire.
Yeah.
I've killed so many vampires in my life.
2 days away from retirement.
Turning in my steaks.
His crossbow. But I loved the last third of this movie. That's where the movie really shines, and like everything else before is just like fun and great, but like it really comes into like a movie that has like a plot. And like it's like, oh, everything that was talked about before is actually coming back into place. Like they're trying out different ways of killing the vampires. It's a very, very gruesome, like kind of strategic fight in like home invasion warfare. Yeah. I don't know. It's awesome. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, and I guess when we talk about like how they kill these vampires, they do kind of follow the lore of what we know of vampire lore, where one vampire dies in a bathtub full of holy water and garlic, which then sets off the entire plumbing in the house to just like explode and shake, where every sink and toilet and pipe is just bursting.
Adding insult to injury.
Yeah, and then you get the classic death by stereo, which is a great line from this movie.
That's probably one of my favorites.
And then, and then Kiefer in that same scene gets, you know, kind of flown into the deer antlers, and we think he dies. But I thought that was an interesting room. The first time I saw that room, which is where the grandfather does his taxidermy, He's a taxidermist. So there's a bunch of like antlers and animals in there, and it's got this like red light. My first thought when I saw that room was Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but then Michael utters that line like right away as they see it.
Ooh.
He's like talking about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like, okay, good. That was intentional. Good.
Do you have any fun trivia for us about this movie, Matt?
Yeah, one we didn't really touch on was the original director was Richard Donner. Was going to do this movie, and it was a complete.
The guy who did Superman.
Did he do what's Superman?
The Christopher Reeve one.
He might have. It's the same guy who did Lethal Weapon. He chose not to do this movie to do Lethal Weapon.
Honestly, that's probably for the better.
Well, here's a little more tidbit to that. Yeah, it is for the better, I think. The version Richard Donner was going to do, there's 3 people who were credited on this script, and I'm blanking on their names. 2 of them were attached with the original script. And it was supposed to be like a Goonies type movie, because Richard Donner did Goonies. And they brought on Corey Feldman, because it was going to be like a Goonies where the 2 main characters, the brothers, were going to be younger, like 8-year-old Cub Scouts. And they came upon these vampires, which I get the vibe of like My Little Vampire that came out in the early 2000s with the kid from Jerry Maguire. Like a kid falls and finds these vampires and they become friends. And it's like a little treasure hunt type thing. That was the original screenplay with Richard Donner. And he leaves for Lethal Weapon. Schumacher gets pulled in and said he won't do that version. So he brings in this 3rd scriptwriter who's credited with the other 2. And they make them teenagers. It's more of a horror movie. And they're older and, more sexualized and stuff like that. So this could have been a whole different movie if Richard Donner would have agreed to it.
I like how he leaves, like, this kid's movie to do, like, I'm going to do this crazy action movie, this buddy cop film from this up-and-coming star from from Australia who's controversial now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I feel like everything worked out in the end. We got the Lost Boys, we got Lethal Weapon.
Which are all great.
We got multiple.
True. We got a franchise.
And I think it's in Lethal Weapon 1, which is the one Donner he left to do, was they walk by a marquee. Murtaugh and Jenkins? No, Murtaugh and what's the other guy? Do you guys know Lethal Weapon?
It is Jenkins, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, Murtaugh and Jenkins? I hope so. Definitely Murtaugh. They walk by a marquee, a movie theater, and it says Lost Boys are playing. Like the hit of the summer or something. Which came out less than a year before Lethal Weapon did. And he was supposed to do it, so I don't know if if it was just an actual marquee in the shot, or he did that on purpose. Where he was like, I almost did that movie, it was great, let's put it in. He had to have known.
I bet it was intentional.
If I almost did a movie that's in a shot, I'm going to recognize the title.
We are way off with Mel Gibson's character's name, and I'm ashamed.
Wait, don't tell me. Murtaugh's right, though, right?
Of course, that is absolutely correct.
Murtaugh and...
I don't know why we thought Jenkins.
I don't know either. Murtaugh and...
You sold me. I
don't know what is it. I can't think.
Riggs,
Murtaugh and Riggs. I don't know how Jenkins came up. It just sounds like a cop name.
It does.
Jenkins, give me your badge. And it sounds good with any name, right? There's so much. I mean, you go into a lot of trivia. This movie. We talked about the sequels already. Ben Stiller almost was a vampire in this movie. That's a trivia that I found. Yeah, that was a thing.
Oh man, that's crazy.
Yeah, the term "vamp out," which is used in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, was first said by Corey Feldman in this movie. So it became a catchphrase on that show. Is originated in this movie. Josh Whedon said that. Yeah. One
I
thing...
do.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say it's kind of funny how like Buffy the Vampire Slayer really takes us into like a lot of influence from this movie because like when I do watch other like vampire movies, I really do compare it to The Lost Boys because like even though like the plot isn't entirely there, it's just really entertaining and like has the right amount of like action and like I don't know, just like very pleasing scenes. And then when I don't like, I don't know, there's some other like other vampire movies that are like not as actiony, and it like kind of bums me out. I don't know. I feel like I like ruined myself by watching this first and like expecting every vampire movie to be like this. Like, I don't know. It just threw me off.
Yeah, I think it does a good job because it came out in '87 around Fright Night. Keeping to the conventions people knew of vampires, like a lot of those things, like they fly, they're bats, they suck blood at night, yada yada yada, garlic. But also, it's kind of the modern vampire we know. Like they made it that youthful young teenager who looks like a normal person and then becomes the monster at night. And like Buffy took that one, and you know, it's just, I guess what we're more familiar with. It's not like Jerry Dandridge, if you will, in Fright Night, or the old Dracula where it's the older guy. And that's all it can be, is like, there's a Dracula, and then maybe a sorcerer or something. There's just a group of vampires that hang out together.
Mm.
And the last thing I'll say about the vampires, which I thought was a little different, is the idea of usually the vampires have that female that they are like Dracula has the 3 wives or whatever. These ones didn't really have that. It was David who made Michael a vampire by drinking his blood. So it was all really about brotherhood, which is in one of the lyrics in Cry Little Sister. Great song from the soundtrack. So it was all really about, because I don't think any of them were really interested in Star. Even though she was there, it never became a dynamic of like David being like, back off, Michael, she's mine. It was never really like that. I kind of felt that at the beginning, but they were never really interested in a relationship with Star. It was kind of about...
They didn't have a label on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Vampires are pretty chill like that. They didn't want to put labels on anything. Nobody's property.
You know, they're surprisingly very progressive.
Yeah, they are.
As
For
old
how
as
old as they are.
Yeah. But what I'm trying to say is that I defend this movie just because it's really entertaining, and just the fact for the last third of the movie really makes it worth it.
Yeah.
That's my take.
Alright. I agree with you. I think it's got kind of a campy feel to it, which I love. It makes me feel young again. Kiefer Sutherland, again, I have to say he stands out in this for me probably the most. And I love the whole cast, though. I love the story. I love the reference, to Peter Pan. And it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy this movie, so I would also defend it wholeheartedly.
Yeah, and I'll echo that. I defend it as well. I really enjoy it. As much as we said, maybe there's not that plot at the beginning, it never really lost my attention, or I wasn't enjoying it. It just didn't really have a plot point after plot point. And then that third act really makes up for that. I thought it was stylistically really cool, and what they did with the vampire lore was, similar to what Fright Night did. It kind of kept the conventions, but created these sort of very subtle changes in and of itself. Great soundtrack, and great young actors I thought were in the movie. So it was entertaining. It looked cool, and you get some great quotes from this movie, usually uttered by either Sam or Edgar, but they were some great quotes. So I defend it.
Definitely.
And I guess before we wrap it up, we've all defended it. The budget and box office, we didn't touch on that. I have the numbers. Do you guys have a... Do you think it was a flop or a success?
I feel like it did fairly well.
I think it was a success.
I feel like it was a success.
Yeah. It was a budget of $8.5 million, and box office was $32 million. Yeah. So.
Okay.
quadruple its budget. So.
And yeah, I think reviews were mostly positive with this one as well.
Yeah, they were like positive or like lukewarm. Like Ebert's is why I say that. I read Ebert's, if you guys did, and he gave it 2.5 out of 4, which is like middle of the road, just over middle of the road. He wasn't too blown away by it. He kind of knocked Schumacher a lot of like bringing his music video stuff into the movie and like negating plot, kind of like we talked about. But overall, no one was like, "This is stupid, dumb, makes no sense." Most people enjoyed it. Well, with that, I guess we will wrap it up on the podcast this week. We have discussed the 1985 vampire film, The Lost Boys. Until next time, we'll be around. We'll be on the internet. Let us know what you're thinking on Facebook, the Twitter. We're on iTunes, SoundCloud, anywhere you listen to podcasts. If you want us to do a certain movie, hit us up on the social media. We do check it. Contrary to popular belief, we do check it. And we'll get back to you right away. But until next time, I'm Matt Johnson, and I'll remain in the shadows.
I'm Peter Hansen. I sleep all day, party all night, never grow old, never die. It's fun to be a vampire.
And with that being said, I'm Lindsay Clark, and we got a vamp out.